In 2016, the World Economic Forum and Forbes magazine published a short essay titled, "Welcome to 2030, I own nothing, have no privacy, and life has never been better." Written by Ida Auken, Denmark's former Minister for the Environment, the essay imagines what life might be like in 2030. The year 2030 was chosen because of its importance to the achievement of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals and the Agenda 2030. The SDGs are a collection of 17 interlinked objectives adopted by the UN in 2015 with the ostensible goal of ending poverty, protecting the planet, and spreading peace and prosperity to all people by 2030. However, these lofty idealistic goals actually hide darker intentions. The SDGs and Agenda 2030 are a step towards a world where individual liberty and privacy are erased, and technocratic digital surveillance and social engineering are the norm. Although the essay is nearly a decade old, most people have become aware of it and the phrase "you will own nothing and be happy" since the World Economic Forum announced the Great Reset Agenda in June 2020.
Now is the historical moment, the time, not only to fight severe virus, but to shape the system.
Since that announcement, countless researchers, podcasters, and journalists have shared their concerns with the public in an attempt to avert the world described by this essay. When you get past the buzzwords and promises of utopia, you recognize that the world of 2030 described by the World Economic Forum is a world where technocrats centrally plan every aspect of society. It is a world with no privacy, no personal property ownership, with mandatory digital IDs and digital currencies, and social credit scores. The essay makes this clear when it states, quote, "Everything you considered a product has now become a service," or, quote, "In our city, we don't pay any rent because someone else is using our free space whenever we do not need it. My living room is used for business meetings when I'm not there." The author states that shopping has turned into choosing things to use, and sometimes she lets the algorithm do it for her because, quote, "It knows my taste better than I do by now." Finally, she laments the people who do not live in our city, those we lost on the way, referring to the people who opted out of the smart cities and social credit scores to exit the cities to build so-called self-supplying communities. What the writer fails to understand is that millions of people are already choosing to exit the cities and build outside the digital dystopia planned for 2030. Even those who cannot or will not leave the cities are beginning to question what their future holds if they remain in the tightly controlled metroplexes. While most people likely do not agree with the vision put forth by the WEF, the UN, and their cartels, we cannot deny that these institutions are working night and day to achieve their 2030 agenda. They are working with hundreds of multinational corporations, nearly every major world government, and spending trillions of dollars to manifest this great reset of society. And while millions of people have woken up to this agenda, the vast majority are still spending their time being reactive and allowing these technocrats to manipulate their emotions and actions, and thus their lives. What if, instead of exclusively being reactionary, we put all of our energy into creating our own visions for 2030? If we know we reject the technocratic Great Reset and Agenda 2030, then we must spend time getting to know exactly what we are seeking to create. Instead of "you will own nothing and be happy in 2030, perhaps we can make it "you will be thriving and you will be fulfilled in 2030. The answer completely depends on every single one of us. The future generations are depending on us to build an alternative to the technocratic vision. Here's one alternative vision to the world of 2030. Welcome to 2030. I own land, live among like-minded people, and life has never been better. Welcome to my home. I own a couple of acres in an intentional community 1 hour outside of a major city. I live in a hempcrete home with my family and our pets. Together we live among dozens of other families and individuals who decided to get out of the concrete jungle and head for greener pastures. Every family owns their own land and their own home. The founders of our community bought the land and began recruiting members in the late 2010s as the surveillance grids became more obvious. Our community has built our own homes, roads, a network of trails, and a community center where we host educational workshops to teach others how to become independent from the grid. Speaking of the grid, some of our neighbors have been experimenting with free energy devices, while others are focused on solar and hydroelectric power. We are determined to be energy independent, especially after some governments began disconnecting the unvaccinated from the electric grid in 2026. Once food prices and inflation began to rise in 2025, we realized we needed to cut our dependence on the grocery stores. Most of the corporate stores require a digital ID to enter anyways, and our community members have opted out of that system. All of our homes are nestled within food forests producing fruits from around the world. The hundreds of trees we have planted the last few years shield our homes from the elements and allow for privacy. As you walk down the pathways, you also see many permaculture gardens producing veggies and herbs for cooking and medicine. Free-range kids are running in every direction, laughing and playing in the sun. The best part of our lives now is that we are not alone. We are one of thousands of communities which form an international network outside of the big cities and control grid. Our community is surrounded by several other like-minded communities, each with their own governance models, traditions, and norms. We often trade goods and services with our local neighbors, and some communities have begun establishing long-distance trade networks. Thankfully, in the late 2010s, a handful of forward-thinking individuals began establishing local freedom cells and circles, helping people network and find the community they were looking for. These groups laid the foundation for a movement which saw millions of people exiting from the grid and disobeying authoritarian mandates. Those cells eventually morphed into intentional communities and eco-villages, united by respect for self-ownership and bodily autonomy. Together they form a decentralized network of networks which gives the people an option outside of the smart cities. They live different kinds of lives inside the city. While we chose to exit the cities, some folks stayed behind, convinced they could disrupt the move towards a technocratic police state. And in some cases, they were correct. The digital IDs were defeated, the authoritarian control removed, and human liberty flourishes, even in the concrete jungle. We've even partnered with some of the cities to help them implement permaculture operations to make the cities more food independent. In other cases, the agenda has continued to move forward, but the resistance grows every day. The ruling class underestimated the tenacity of the human spirit. As long as there is life, there is hope. This vision is my simple attempt at outlining what 2030 could be like. I call it Liberation 2030, and I work every day to help others see the importance of envisioning this future. Maybe your vision is slightly different. Whatever it is, write it down, see it in your mind, and do what you can to bring it to reality. Let's reject Agenda 2030 and the Great Reset, and let's build the People's Reset.